Right now, in the corner of my kitchen here in Okinawa, behind the leg of the cupboard where the floor meets the wall, there is a thin line of pale powder no thicker than a thread. You would never notice it unless you knew exactly where to look, and even then, you might pass your eyes right over it. I put it there 3 weeks ago, on a quiet morning, with an old brush and a steady hand. And in those 3 weeks, not one cockroach, not one ant, not one mouse has crossed my kitchen floor. Not one. The whole container of that powder cost me less than $2, and it will last me the entire year, perhaps longer. There is no man with a truck coming to my door. No poison sprayed across the home where I cook my food. No bill waiting at the end of the month. And in just a few minutes, I am going to show you exactly what that powder is and exactly where to place it so that you can do the very same thing in your own home this week. Tonight, even, if you wish. My name is Kenji Takara. I am 81 years old, and I have lived my whole life on the island of Okinawa, in the warm, damp south of Japan. And I will tell you plainly, a warm and humid island is a paradise for crawling things. Cockroaches the size of your thumb. Ants in long marching lines across the floor in the early morning. Mice in the cool months, slipping in from the fields to find the warmth of a kitchen. I have known them all, my whole life long. My grandmother kept every one of them out of her kitchen for 60 years without ever once buying a poison from a store, and she taught me how when I was a boy small enough to sit beneath her table and watch her work, watching her hands move along the edges of the room. The method is old, it is cheap, and it works better than the expensive sprays, if, and only if, you understand the one thing that almost everyone gets wrong. I have watched my neighbors fight this battle the modern way my whole life. They buy the cans. They sign the contracts. They spray until the whole kitchen smells of chemicals, until they are half afraid to set their own food upon their own counter. And still, every single summer, the roaches come back, the ants return, the mice find their way in once more. They are fighting hard and losing slowly, and they cannot understand why. I will tell you why. They are fighting the wrong war, with the wrong weapons, against an enemy they do not understand. But before I show you what truly works, let me tell you the part that should make you a little angry. The pest control companies in your country charge $60, $80, $150 for a single visit, and they want to come back every month or every season, forever and ever. The spray cans on the shelf cost $10 or $15 and empty themselves in a week, and then you buy another, and another, and another. None of these people have any interest in telling you that a $2 container of a simple powder, placed correctly, will do more than all of it combined and keep right on working for months from a single application. Think on that for a moment. The man in the truck is paid only so long as the creatures keep coming back. The company on the shelf earns only when the can runs dry. Their whole living depends upon your problem never truly ending. There is no repeat customer in a method that actually solves the problem. There is no profit in a victory, and so they would far rather sell you the fight, the endless, expensive, losing fight, than ever sell you the quiet, cheap, permanent win. Once you see this clearly, you cannot unsee it. And once you have seen it, You are ready to learn what they will never teach you. Quick word before I begin, and I won't bring it up again. Everything I share here, there's far more of it than fits in one video. So I gathered it all into one book, the Takara Method. And right now I'm keeping it at a special price, lower than it'll normally be. The link's in the description, or point your phone at the code on screen. That's all. Now let me show you today's. Now here is where almost everyone goes wrong. And if you do not understand this, the powder will not work, and you will say the old man was mistaken. So listen closely. Most people, when they see a cockroach or an ant, spray it, or they sprinkle powder in a great careless heap right where they saw the creature. And it does nothing, because you are not trying to kill the one insect you can see. For every one you see, there are dozens you do not, in the walls, beneath the floor, deep in the nest. The secret is not to attack the insect. The secret is to let the insect carry your powder home to the nest, to the ones you will never see. You do not hunt them. You let them poison themselves and each other, quietly, over days, until the whole hidden colony is gone. The powder is called boric acid. You will find it in the hardware store, sometimes sold as roach powder, for $1 or $2. It is not a perfume-scented spray. It is the real plain thing. And the first step, the most important one, the one that changes everything, begins not with where you put it, but with how little of it you use. This is the mistake that ruins everything, so let me be very clear. You must use only the thinnest possible dusting of the powder, less than you think, far less. A cockroach or an ant will walk straight through a thin film of powder without noticing it, carrying it away on its legs and its body. But if you pour out a thick white heap, the insect sees it, smells it, and simply walks around it. The heavy pile that looks like it should work best is the very thing that fails. A line no thicker than a thread, almost invisible, brushed into the cracks. That is what works. My grandmother used a soft brush, an old paintbrush worn down with age, to sweep the faintest trace of it into the gaps. Think of it as a thin path the insect must cross, not a wall it can see and avoid. Now here is where to place it, and the order matters. Insects do not wander randomly. They travel along edges, where the floor meets the wall, along the backs of cupboards, beneath the sink. So you treat the edges, not the open floor. Brush your thin line of boric acid along the baseboards behind the refrigerator, behind and beneath the stove, under the kitchen sink where the pipes come through the wall, and into the gap beneath the lowest cupboards. These are the highways. Treat the highways, and you treat every traveler that uses them. For the cockroaches especially, there is a way to make this far more powerful, and it is the heart of the old method. You make a bait that they will carry home and eat. Take a spoonful of the boric acid powder and mix it with an equal spoonful of something sweet and sticky, sugar, or better still, a little condensed milk or honey. The sugar draws them in, the boric acid does the quiet work. Roll this paste into tiny balls the size of a pea and tuck them in the dark places where roaches gather, behind the stove, under the sink, in the back corners of low cupboards, behind the refrigerator where it is warm. The roach eats the sweet bait, returns to the nest, and there it dies, and the others feed upon it, and so the poison passes through the whole colony from the inside. 1 spoonful of powder and a spoonful of sugar will do more than a dozen cans of spray. because it reaches the ones you cannot see. This costs you almost nothing, pennies, and a single batch lasts for weeks. For the ants, the principle is the same, but the sweet must be matched to them. Ants that come for sugar, you bait with sugar. But some ants come for grease and protein, especially in the cooler months. For those, mix your boric acid with a little peanut butter instead. Place these baits directly on the ant trail, the line you see them marching along. Do not sweep the trail away first. And this is what everyone gets wrong. People wipe up the line of ants in disgust, which only scatters them and sends them looking for new ways in. Instead, leave the trail, set your bait upon it, and let the workers carry it back down into the nest to the queen. Within a week or two, the whole colony fails. You are not killing ants one by one at your counter. You are ending the source. And here I must teach you the hardest part of the whole method, which is not a material at all, but patience. This is the place where most people give up one day too soon. When you set your baits, you may see, for the first 2 or 3 days, more insects than before, not fewer. Do not panic, and do not sweep it all away in despair. This is the bait doing its work. It has drawn them out to feed and carry the powder home. The dying comes after, quietly, in the nest you cannot see, over the following week. The man with the spray can promises you a kill you can watch in the moment, and that is why people love him. But his kill is only the few you could see, while the nest lives on. The old way is slower and surer and final. Set your baits in the evening, when the crawling things begin to move, for they are creatures of the dark and the night. Leave them undisturbed, and let time and the colony's own habits do what no spray ever can. Trust the method. Give it its week. Now the mice. For these, boric acid is not the tool, and I will not tell you it is, because I will only ever tell you what is true. For mice, you use a different old method, and it is just as cheap. Mice hate strong smells in their narrow spaces. Steel wool pushed firmly into every gap where a pipe enters the wall, every hole the width of a pencil, for a mouse can pass through a hole astonishingly small, smaller than you would ever believe, stops them at the door, because they cannot chew through the steel as they chew through wood and plastic. A few coins worth of steel wool pressed deep into the gaps beneath your sink and behind your appliances is the single most effective thing you can do, and it lasts for years. Block the door, and the mouse never enters to begin with. Let me give you now the extra layers, the small things that most people overlook, that double the strength of everything I have told you. The first and the most important of all, a clean kitchen is your true defense. No bait, no powder, no steel wool will save a kitchen that feeds the very creatures you are fighting. Cockroaches, ants, and mice all come for 2 things only: food and water. Wipe the crumbs from beneath the toaster. Do not leave dishes in the sink overnight. Keep your rice, your flour, your sugar, your dry goods in sealed glass or metal jars, not in their paper bags. And here my grandmother was very strict, for she kept everything in heavy-lidded jars, and a sealed jar is a thing the insect cannot reach, and the mouse cannot smell. Fix the dripping tap, for a single drop of water in the night is a drinking fountain for 1,000 insects. Take this seriously, and the powder and bait do the rest. The second, Deny them the dark, still places they love. Insects and mice both want clutter. The stack of paper bags, the pile of cardboard boxes in the corner, the things shoved to the back of the cupboard and forgotten. Clear these away, and you take from them the very homes they were seeking. This costs nothing but an afternoon, and it is mottainai itself. For the clutter you clear is often things you do not need, and in clearing it, you both deny the pest its nest and lighten your own home. The third, a gentle one my grandmother loved. Certain strong scents the crawling things will not cross. Bay leaves tucked in the corners of the cupboard and in the jars of flour and rice. A few drops of peppermint oil on a cotton ball pushed into the back corners. Dried citrus peel by the door. These will not kill an infestation on their own. I will not pretend they will, but as a final layer, in a home already kept clean and already baited, they turn the insects away at the edges and keep them from returning. My grandmother always had a bay leaf in the rice. I thought it was for the flavor. It was for the weevils. And there is a fourth layer that almost no one thinks of, though it is one of the most important of all, the water they drink. I told you the crawling things come for food and water both, and people remember the food and forget the water entirely. At night, before you sleep, dry your sink completely with a cloth. Wipe the bottom of the bathtub. Empty the dish that sits beneath a potted plant. Check beneath the refrigerator, where a slow drip can gather unseen for weeks. A cockroach can live a surprisingly long time without food, but it cannot live without water, and a kitchen left wet each night is an oasis that no powder can fully overcome. Deny them the water, and you weaken them far more than you would ever guess. My grandmother wiped her stone sink dry every single night of her life, the last task before the lamp went out. I never understood why until I was grown. She was closing the last door. And let me tell you about that grandmother, for she is in every word of this. In our small wooden house by the sea, in that wet island heat that breeds crawling things faster than anywhere I have known, her kitchen was always clean of them, always. She walked the edges of her kitchen every week with her little brush and her jar of powder, the way her own mother had taught her, sweeping the thin, invisible line into the cracks, replacing the sweet baits, checking the jars were sealed and the gaps were stopped. It took her perhaps 20 minutes. She never once called a man, never once bought a poison in a can, never once paid a single yen to anyone to do what she could do herself with $2 of powder and a careful hand. The neighbors with their modern sprays fought the same roaches year after year. My grandmother's kitchen was simply, quietly clean. She did not fight the battle every week. She had won it, and she only kept the peace. This is what we mean by mottainai. It is not only to waste no food and no money, it is to refuse to be sold a costly, endless fight over a problem that a little knowledge and $2 can simply solve. Why should you pay $150 again and again, season after season, to a company that profits only so long as your problem never truly ends? They are selling you the fight. I am giving you the victory, and it costs you almost nothing. And think on what that nothing is worth. A pest control contract can cost $500, $600, $800 across a single year. On a fixed income, That is real money. That is medicine. That is a gift for a grandchild. That is the cushion against a hard month. The powder and the steel wool and the sealed jars cost you perhaps $10 in total, one time, and a little of your care each week. That is the difference, across the years of a retirement, of thousands of dollars kept in your own pocket, where it belongs, instead of handed to a man in a truck. There is a dignity in that. The dignity of solving your own troubles with your own two hands, the way the people before us always did, because they had no other choice, and so they learned what truly worked. So this week, I ask you to begin with just the first step. Buy your $2 container of boric acid. Brush the thinnest line of it along the edges where the floor meets the wall, behind the stove and beneath the sink. Mix a little with sugar. Roll your tiny baits and tuck them in the dark corners. Press steel wool into every gap you can find. Dry your sink each night and keep your kitchen clean. By next week, you will see for yourself what 81 years on a warm island have taught me to be true. And when you do, come down to the comments below and tell me, where in the world do you live, and what is it you are fighting in your own home? The roaches, the ants, the mice, or all three? Tell me your town, your country. I read every message that comes to me, and I would dearly like to know who among you wins back their kitchen this week, quietly, cheaply, and for good. And the next time we sit together, I will show you what my grandmother kept in a small dish on the back of the stove all through the summer. One common thing from the kitchen that kept the flies out of the house entirely, with no sticky paper, no spray, and no smell that troubled the food. It worked for 100 years before anything was sold in a can, and it still works better than anything you can buy today. Until then, waste nothing, solve your own troubles, and remember that the people who lived closest to the earth understood things that we, with all our cans and contracts, are only now beginning to remember once again.